Happy launch day. This is Cody Siengdahl, the Baron von Engdahl, and we are launching today my fifth novel, which is called The Prussian Prince. And before we go any further, I gotta fix this right away. This chin strap is driving me nuts. Now, it's supposed to sit on. A lot of times, if you've seen some of my branding on the thumbnail, I got the Crown Prince Friedrich Wilhelm, who is um, prominently in the book. It's not about him, but he's definitely a prominent character in the book in which the main character interacts with and does some badass things. And just before anybody gets too upset with all this Germanic branding and things like that, um, yes, what's happening in the 1860s is eventually going to lead into World War One, which is eventually going to lead into World War Two. But by no means are the Prussians Nazis. Um, the Prussians were anti-socialist and anti-communist, just like the Nazis were. At least the government was. But they weren't anti-Semite. Well, let's back that up. Anti-Semitism always existed in Europe, and the last time I lived there, it was still existing. But I will say that the Crown Prince Friedrich Wilhelm is the guy you see on the in my advertisements, and he's in the book. Said of anti-Semitism, he said, "is a blot upon our time," and he was so much against it that he, who was going to be the future emperor of, well, the future king of Prussia, and eventually future emperor of the German Empire, would go with his wife to synagogues and sit in on Jewish sermons to show his solidarity with German Jews and Prussian Jews. So yes, you're going to see iron crosses and pickle helbs and all sorts of Germanic things, but none of those things are those are things that were co-opted by the Nazis, which are two regimes after the fall of the German Empire. And I'm not saying the German Empire was always in the right or always angels either. It gets worse after Friedrich Wilhelm died in the 1880s. Now, Friedrich Wilhelm, God, I didn't expect I was going to do this right off the bat, but I will say Friedrich Wilhelm was the second emperor of the Year of Three Emperors. So his father, Wilhelm the First, was a König, which means king of Prussia, and then after the Franco-Prussian War, he becomes emperor of Germany. And the reason why is because before the Franco-Prussian War, or the end of the Franco-Prussian War, Germany was still a collection of kingdoms and duchies and free cities and all sorts of different political systems and nations or countries, or I don't know what you call them, independent states that were all part of the Holy Roman Empire, which included Austria. But then Napoleon came along and blew that out. I think in 1806 is the end of the Holy Roman Empire. And the Holy Roman Empire had, for the most part, with a few exceptions, had been ruled by the Habsburgs, which were the ruling family of, one of the branches of the Habsburg families ruled Austria all the way into World War One, and then of course there are also Habsburgs that were ruling in Spain and all sorts of we won't get into the history of the Habsburgs right now. But so Wilhelm was king of Prussia, and he is. If you look at my book cover, if you buy the actual printed book, because that painting's wraparound, King Wilhelm is actually on the spine. He's sitting on a horse watching the Battle of Königgrätz. And that painting that is in my on the cover is the Battle of Konigratz, and what you're seeing off in the distance. Uh, is that Konigratz or is that Sadova? Because basically the battle takes place in a kessel between two. You have the Bystris River to the north and the Elbe to the south, and Sadova sits right on the Bystris, and Konigratz sits right on the Elbe, and the Austrians were basically concentrated in the land between the two rivers, which the Germans like to call a Kessel. By the way, if Kessel sounds familiar to you because you watch Star Wars and Han Solo is bragging about making the Kessel run in what do you say, 12 parsecs, which doesn't make sense because parsecs are a measurement of distance, not time. They're getting it from this dramatic because honestly, Star Wars, the Empire, it's space Nazis. Their uniforms, look like they're designed by Hugo Boss. And I will say this about the Germans, whether it's the Prussians or the German Empire, the Weimar Republic, or the Nazis, they win the fashion competition of the mid 19th century through the early 20th century. The best. I mean, look at this. Badass. Now, let me just tell you, I'm not wearing a Prussian uniform. I'm actually wearing a American Civil War Union. This is a captain's shell jacket, and is a shell. What's the waistcut ones? I think that's right. No, I already forgot. But I just got this helmet, and I will say, yes, I. By the way, tomorrow's my birthday, so happy birthday to me, and and we'll get into this. I wanted the launch to end up to be on my birthday because a lot of people like to wish me happy birthday on my page, and like, wouldn't that be great if I also was launching a book at the same time when a lot of people are paying attention to me, and maybe some people are like, hey, it's his birthday, maybe I'll buy his book and give him a 5-star review and all that kind of stuff. But I blew the timing. I got it done. I had no problem making the deadline. I misunderstood how it worked, I guess is the best way to say that. But anyway, just so you know, this is Civil War uniform. They're not too different from the Prussians. I'd have to look at a Prussian one, but I'll tell you this: the Prussian uniform is a lighter blue. In fact, there's a literal color called the Prussian. And I need to explain the helmet. I started doing that, and that's one of the things I'm working on because I go on tangents and I don't finish ideas or thoughts. So we'll circle back to the helmet. But just so you know, this is a Civil War jacket. It's the Prussian jacket is a little slightly lighter blue with red collars and red cuffs. And I'm sure there's other things that go along with it as well. And I am looking to get one of those because I'm, here I am. I'm a 12-year-old little boy with my, helmet and all that. But I'm also want to wear it to shows. And I have a show, it's Civil War and military history show. So this, I've seen plenty of Pickelhaube. This is what this is. Pickelhaube. And Pickelhaube means spiked bonnet is what it means. It's a boiled leather hat. It's hard. It's actually pretty effective helmet. I mean, you can definitely use this. I was considering returning it because I have such a big head that things don't fit me very well. But I looked at the Prince's helmet, and it sits on his head the way this one does, and I think it is leather, but it's hard leather. That with a hat stretcher that I could probably stretch this out a little bit and make it fit and be a little comfortable, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to buy one. It's supposed to be adjustable, but I got an enormous head. I mean, I'm a big boy. I don't know if you know me in real life, but I'm 6'2". I weigh about 235 pounds. I could lose some weight for sure, but I'm also broad shouldered, and I got big legs, and I'm big, and so. But my head is like not just proportionally big to fit my body, but maybe a little too big, and it makes me look like a Baby Huey sometimes. I feel like a cartoon character. I'm built like a 6'2" midget or whatever I'm sorry if that's, I can never, I think midget, there's nothing wrong with that. I think dwarf sounds different. I don't know. A 6'2" little person. And no offense to anybody. For God's sakes, please don't cancel me. Okay. And then don't cancel me for that. I mean, this is, I'm actually more into the Kingdom of Prussia than the German Empire, but we're going to get into the German Empire eventually. More on that later. So the helmet. Okay. So it was my intention to buy a helmet. I was going to do it for myself as kind of a birthday present. Yes, my birthday's tomorrow. And my mother is my parents are very sweet to me, and thank goodness my mother and my father are still alive. But and they're very kind to me, and they still care about me. I'm still their child. My mother said, well, okay, my mother's one of my editors. So once Laura, my girlfriend, goes through all my stuff and makes all her changes, then then I get her changes, and then I go through them and I make the corrections on my manuscripts. And some of the things are just like, hey, check this, make sure you did this right. And I love it. I said, honey, if you even question anything, circle it. And then I can look and maybe I was right. Sometimes I am, a lot of times I'm not. So I appreciate it. And then my mother does it. So my mother really liked this book, and she really got behind it. And she's like, I don't know what they cost, but I want to buy you one of those helmets. Because my mother is like me. We're both marketers. I mean, I learned that. My mother has run an ad agency most of my life. I think she was a floor director at a local TV station in Detroit when I was a baby. And I grew up like on the sets there. And then she got into right around when I was 4 or 5, she went to work for an ad agency and then opened her one herself. And then I worked in her commercial production company when I got to college, and then became a partner in it. And that's kind of how I got into television, and then eventually left that, got into news, and then worked in several markets, including Detroit, Toledo, Southwest Florida, and then Nashville, where I ended up as a morning reporter. And then left television altogether. Because to tell you the truth, I don't even really I don't own a television. Okay, I go too far. I get on tangents. We got plenty to talk about today. So anyway, my mom's like, I want you to pick out a helmet. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't want to like spend a lot of my mom's money. And it wasn't that much. It was pretty reasonable, and it's a marketing tool, because when I do the shows, I like to, I have like Civil War toy soldiers that I put on there, and I got flags and things like that, and just to make it real. And so having the pickle help helps. It's going to be on my table. I'm going to wear it. I am going to buy a Prussian frock. I'm going to go deeper into the Prussian uniform. Very excited, and it's going to work because not only is the book that the Prussian Prince that we're going to eventually talk about came out today. Well, it kind of trickled out before the launch date that I had planned, but not only but that book is the Austro-Prussian War of 1866. And the next book that I'm already beginning to write, well, no, I'm sorry, I'm not beginning to write, but I'm beginning to do research and do some outlining. And I have a pretty good idea of what that's going to be. It's the working title right now is The French Fiasco, but it might be The Passing of Empires. I haven't decided yet. But the next book is going to pick up where the book that came out today leaves off. Well, actually, it's going to be a couple years after the Prussian Prince ends, and take us into the Franco-Prussian War. And what's interesting about these two books is that the original idea was it was going to be one book. So when I started writing, and just so you know how I work, so I was always going to write a series. And in the beginning, I was going to write a series that was all American Civil War. But that didn't last very long. I think early on, I decided when I picked the Second Michigan Cavalry to be kind of like the regiment that we were going to follow, even though I have heroes in both armies. I have Confederate main characters and Union and all that. And um, I realized that I was the American Civil War, which is I love it, but it's not where I wanted to stay for the rest of my life. So that's just a trilogy. All the books are connected. So we did a American Civil War trilogy. Then we did a prequel called Mexico My Love. That was my previous book. And Mexico My Love, which is a great book. I love all my books. So I can't say one's my favorite. They all have different, they're all good. So if you're looking for something to read, I suggest any of them. And you can read them out of order, but they do create an overall narrative if you read them in order. And there is a little bit of a surprise that happens in the end of the second book, The Perils of Perryville. It's kind of a mystery that I set up in the first book, Rampage on the River, and I pay it off and that. And so if you skip past that and jump in later, there'll be a little something spoiled, kind of a, I don't want to give too much away, but just think about like Star Wars. Like if you were a kid like me who actually went and saw the first Star Wars movie in the theater in 1977, and then went to see a couple of years later, The Empire Strikes Back, and we're like, oh, no way. There's a little bit of that happens, and I won't give any more than that. But then if the trilogy is the original Star Wars trilogy, then Mexico My Love is like certainly like the prequel trilogy because it talks about Mexico My Love is the story of how the main character in the trilogy, Carl, how his parents meet in France, fall in love, run away together, and end up in the Mexican-American War. And so by the time you finish Mexico My Love, it sets Carl and his mother, Carl, who's still a toddler at the end of that book, Carl and his mother are in place where we will find them at the beginning of the first book, Rampage on the River, where Carl is a young man entering into the army and going off to war. If you could, I think it'd be really interesting if you wanted to read things in chronological order. You could start off with Mexico My Love and then go from there into Rampage on the River. The only thing is, if you read Mexico My Love first, you're going to know things that you wouldn't have known if you started on Rampage on the River and read through. So my suggestion to anybody is, well, first of all, let's say this first. I have had people come up, like especially people from Kentucky, and they've come up to my stand at a show and they see The Perils of Perryville and they go, hey, I live near Perryville. I love it. I've been to the battlefield. I'm going to just get this book here. And they get The Perils of Perryville, which is the second book of a now 5-book series. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I write every book as if it's the first book of mine that you picked up. So yeah, I think if you want, I think the best experience is to start with Rampage on the River, read the trilogy, read the prequel, and then read the Prussian Prince. But you might be like, Cody, I'm not interested in the American Civil War, and I'm not really interested in the Mexican War, but Prussia, wow, that's really cool, and I'm getting a lot of that, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So if you're like, yeah, American Civil War, I'm not interested. Yeah, Mexican War, but the Prussian Wars, by all means, go and get the Prussian Prince without having read anything else, and you can enjoy it because everything you need to know for any of my books is contained within that book. But having said all that, if you're like, no, Cody, I like the things that you do and say, I want to start. Where do I start? I want the whole experience. I'm gonna read all the books. If that's the case, then read them the way I number them. So read Rampage on the River, the Perils of Perryville. It's really hard for me because the Perils of Perryville and the Prussian Prince are both alliterations, and so I get them mixed up. And Blood for Blood at Nashville, which, by the way, originally the series was called the Second Michigan Cavalry Chronicles. And now I've removed that, I've changed the name of the series, but I've left that on the covers of the trilogy because it really is a trilogy. It really is its own trilogy that, like, especially if you are particularly a Civil War fan and you're not interested in the Mexican War and you're not interested in, Central European wars of the mid to late 19th century, then that is a contained trilogy. Of course, like I explained to you, the Mexican one, it's a prequel. Where does the Prussian Prince fit in all this? It takes characters. It takes the character from a character from the trilogy, the Civil War trilogy, and it picks him up there and it throws him into a brand new adventure, which will get him involved in the Austro-Prussian War. And the setup for this, we're like, well, how does an American Civil War vet get involved in a war between Prussia and Austria? And so we're clear what we're talking about here. Prussia is a kingdom that was part of the Holy Roman Empire. And empires are collections of kingdoms, right? You get it's like a super kingdom that's made up of smaller kingdoms within it. Prussia, to put this in perspective, the capital of Prussia is Berlin. And the reason why Berlin is the capital of Germany is because when all the German states and kingdoms and all that, with the exclusion of Austria, were united as one nation, it was under the rule of Prussia. And that's why it's considered an empire, because the Prussian king became he was still king of Prussia, emperor of Germany. And all these, Bavaria and don't make me say them all now. Kessel Hesse. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'll make a fool of myself. But all these German, Württemberg, Silesia was part of Prussia. But anyway, God, I get so off course. Okay, we're going. How does an American Civil War guy get involved with the war? Well, he's got a wife who's German. And let's just say, I don't want to give away too much. Let's just say that at the end of the war, he comes home. He wants to get back to his wife, but his wife is, the character goes missing basically in Blood for Blood at Nashville. So because she doesn't know where he is, doesn't even know he's alive, she decides to go back because her family were German immigrants, but because of political changes and family changes with their family, they're aristocrats, they're nobles, House Himmelschwand. She decides to go back to Germany to be amongst her family as she has his child. He doesn't know that she was pregnant with when, and she didn't know she was pregnant either when he left her in Blood for Blood at Nashville. So it's the end of the American Civil War. He wants to come home to his wife and ends up having to go to Germany to be reunited with her, and gets tangled up in this conflict because just the Austro-Prussian War is in 1866. So going back to like a thing I started like 3 hours ago and all this jibber jabber I've been saying is that when I started writing this, originally it was going to be a series that took place in the American Civil War. And then I realized, no, just a trilogy. And then I came up with the idea of, and if you read Rampage on the River, you'll see I was planning on writing Mexico, My Love when I wrote chapter 1 of Rampage on the River. I knew I was going to write a prequel after the trilogy. I also knew that I was going to write a German war thing. Now, the truth be told, I was going to write a Franco-Prussian War book after the prequel. That was the original plan. And the reason why is like, okay, I created a character. I'm going to have him have all these adventures. And where's he going to go and have an adventure after the Civil War? Oh, okay, the Franco-Prussian War. And everybody, a lot of people have heard of it. It's well known. Oh, well, the problem is that the Franco-Prussian War doesn't start to 1870. And the American Civil War ends 1865. So there's 5 years of him with what am I going to do with him? And I don't want to give too much away, but I needed the adventure to be more immediate than 5 years later, because there are things. Part of the book are things that the main character doesn't know. You as a reader knows, but he doesn't know. And because he doesn't know certain things, it drives his motivations of why he does the things he does and what he expects to happen afterwards. And so I couldn't let that sit for 5 years. It wouldn't make any sense. So I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? But there were things I wanted to have happen in France, because if you read Mexico, My Love, Mexico, My Love starts in France. So there's some things that were important to me for the overall series to have happen in France. And so this book was going to be a Franco-Prussian War book, but I was like, but I can't. I got to do something in between. So then what I thought was like, okay, well, it'll be a two-parter, because my books, like Mexico, My Love's in 3 parts, Blood for Blood's in 3 parts, and Perils of Perryville's in 2 parts, and um, Rampage, like The Prussian Prince, is a single, just kind of a single line story. So I said, okay, well, there's this Austro-Prussian War thing, and I can do some of the things I wanted to do with that. And so I was thinking this of having like 2 major parts, but then I was getting deeper and deeper, and I'm like, this book is going to be super long. And the last 2 were around 120,000. One was 119,000. The other one was 124,000. And there is a little bit of pride, a little, cock measuring in like how big is your book? But the truth is that most readers and definitely publishers, and I'm not looking, I'm not doing this because I'm hoping to get a publisher. I'm more than happy of being an independent, unless a publisher came to me and offered me a Cinderella deal and said, hey, we want to take you to the next level. And if it was a fair deal to me and them, sure. But from what I hear from other people, that's far and in between. I'd rather build myself up as an independent first, and then if I feel like someone can take me to the next level, then I'd be interested. And right now, the only thing that I'm missing, the only thing that like the that the commercially published people have over the independents is some of them get brick and mortar distribution, but I don't even know how important that is anymore, because Amazon owns like 80% of them. I'm not making that number up. It might even be 90% of the market, certainly online. So I am published through Amazon. I am on contract. I have a contract for every one of my novels. That contract renews every 90 days. So I can get out of the contract as long as I indicate to them, hey, I'm going to be leaving after these 90 days because I'm going to do something else. But for the most part, there's no reason to do it. So I enjoy being exclusive with them. They're great. One of the things, and we'll talk about this some more, but Amazon I got a great relationship with them, and they like me, and they have several times now, they have recruited me to be a beta tester. And so there are things that they have me do, or they offer to me before they offer to other independent authors. And I'm very grateful for it. And I also know my role. It's something that's going to be buggy. It's not going to work out perfectly, but I'm there to help them test it. So first was hardcovers. They came up to me. I think it started first with they contacted me and they said, can we interview you? It wasn't an interview for like to show other people, to show like, the public. It was as an independent author who is published through Amazon, they wanted to know about me and things like that. So we had a really good conversation, and I think they liked the things I had to say and my philosophy about how I do things. And so then when the hardcovers first came and they beta tested them, they said, "Would you be interested in being one of our beta testers?" Absolutely. So I had hardcovers, and I did that, and then I filled out some surveys and things like that. Well, the latest thing was, and this is wonderful, they said we're testing AI voiced audiobooks. Would you be interested? Yes. 1,000 times yes. And let me just tell you a couple things. I understand that there are people out there that make a living or at least good money as narrators, and that this could possibly put them out of a job. I feel for them, and I know there's also fear of AI writing novels and putting us authors out of jobs. I'm not so afraid of that, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I feel bad for them, but I also felt bad for the gas attendants. And I wasn't around, but I'm sure it sucked for the elevator operators. You can't hold back progress. And narrators are, important. And I've heard some good ones. I've heard a lot of bad ones. But a narrator isn't really creating; they're just doing other people's work. And I hate to say that, and there's some that are really good. I have learned my last, I do side jobs to bring some money in to supplement the book writing. In my last job, I was traveling a lot, and because I was in the car a lot, I started listening to audiobooks, and I started despising narrators, absolutely despising them. And the reason being is that, and I would yell at the radio, just read the damn book and stop trying to win an Academy Award, for fuck's sake. And the thing that would drive me nuts, the worst of it is that they're just super hammy and melodramatic, and it's distracting. It doesn't immerse me in the story. It actually distracts me from the story. I cannot stand to hear men do falsetto women's voices. It's horrible. And what's worse is sex scenes or romantic scenes. It turns it into Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog. It's absolutely you've just ruined my boner. Thanks a lot, asshole. And I'll tell you this, not to be a hypocrite, but even though I like male voices better for narration, the women do better narration. It's better to hear a woman do a man's voice in narrating. I listen to all the, I listened to two of the original Tarzan novels, and there was a woman who did it, and she did a great job. And it was more believable when she did male voices than listening to a man and a male narrator do falsettos for women's voices. Horrible. And the other thing is they're just melodrama, like the kind of the some of the more painful or emotional scenes, and the guy is just hamming it up and overdoing it. And once again, you're ruining the scene because you're making it, you're being so over dramatic that you're turning what would have been a great scene into a parody. But the thing that I think is the most egregious about human narrators is their fluctuation of volume. And we live in an age of amateurism now, because it used to be, and I mean, the great thing is that anybody can do anything. Anybody can write a book and publish it. Anybody can start a YouTube channel and outperform broadcast television. Anybody can make a movie. There's nothing you can't. If you want to do it, there's no more gatekeepers. The problem is you got to get. Are you going to make any money on it? Just because you write a book doesn't mean people are gonna buy it. Just because you start a YouTube channel. I mean, look at me. I got 471, and I love you all. But the people making money on YouTube have like over 100,000 followers, and some have over 1 million followers, and that's their job. They do YouTube videos nonstop. There are YouTube channels that I follow where a guy will go on there like me, and he'll just talk, and he'll get super chats, and he'll make like thousands of dollars by just sitting there and talking like I am for hours. Now, I'm not looking to do. I mean, it'd be great, but you have to pick what you do. And if I wanted to do that, I could build that. I would have to be a lot more controversial and kind of choose my audience. I want to write novels. I want to write historical. Look at me. This is what I want to do. But the problem is a lot of these narrators are also their own audio engineers, and they never went to school to be audio engineers. They don't understand that you need to keep the needle of your VU. I mean, they live in a world where we don't even have needles anymore, but you got to keep the VU meter between, and I don't know what that means, but I just know from my television days, between, here and here, because if it goes here, it's too low, and here it's going to overmodulate. And so these jackasses are like whispering scenes, and then they're bellowing. And so I'm in my car, and I'm already got problem. I'm an old man. I already have a hard time hearing. So like when they're whispering, I gotta and usually it's the dramatic scenes where they go from whispering and quivering and overacting to bellowing, and it's like, so I'm like, what is that? And I'm driving. I'm like having to back it up because I can't hear the fucking thing saying, because the guy's all of a sudden whispering. So I'm backing up, getting into car accidents, backing up the audio so I can, what was that? And turning up the volume. And now he's screaming and yelling. And it's like, and now he's blowing my speakers. I'm like, for fuck's sake, man, like you need to get, what do you call that? A compressor to keep the audio. I mean, you can vary it a little bit, but you got to keep that volume somewhere in this area. So I don't have to drive writing my fucking volume so that I can catch it when you're whispering, and I can quickly turn it down when you start bellowing into the microphone like I am right now. Sorry, I'm very passionate. By the way, just so you know, and I have to explain this to people because I'm a Yankee. I'm from the North, and we're a little different culturally from the Southerners, and I love Southerners. In fact, that's why I live down here, because they're nicer people. But Yankees like me, we like to rant, and we have our voices and our accents and the way we speak is a very emphatic way, which to some people who are not acclimated to us, it seems like we're angry all the time. We're not. It's just the way that we talk, and we enjoy ranting. So if I seem angry and I'm fiery, I'm just actually trying to be funny. So just so you know that. So the way you can tell if I'm truly angry, I'm very quiet, and I become very sullen, and I don't talk a whole lot, and I certainly don't shout or scream or anything like that. If I'm angry, my anger is cold, very cold. Okay, but enough of that. But so if you hear me ranting and raving, I'm actually having a good time, and I'm thinking that I'm being funny, and hopefully I am. So all that to say that I've stopped listening to audiobooks because the narrator just irritated me that I couldn't listen anymore. And I'll tell you something. There have been series that I stopped paying attention to because I had a bad narrator. Like there was William Dietrich. I like him, and he's got this great series. And I read the first 2 books, and I loved them. And I got the 3rd book on audio tape, and the narrator was such a jackass. And I shouldn't talk bad and actually identify the person. But I was so annoyed by the narration that I just haven't been motivated to listen to the next one or to read the next one, because it kind of ruined the whole thing for me. Like he made the main character unlikable, even though I like the main character, having read it with my own interior voice. So all that to say, if I had paid, it would cost me if I took one of my books and got and had it professionally read, it would cost me $2,000 to $5,000, and I'd have to sell a lot of copies to make that back. This was free, and Amazon, and it only took. I mean, it's AI. It only took a couple hours. To set up each AI book. Now all 7 of my books. There's 2 nonfiction and five fiction. And you know what? Well, I'll tell you what. Let's listen to that. But anyway, I'm a beta tester for the AI audio, and I'll just tell you right now, if you're an author and you're watching this and you're like, hey, how come I didn't get selected? Or don't worry, it's coming. Just like with hardcovers, I was one of the beta testers. A couple months later, everybody had them. And this is what's going to happen. I'm already seeing other places offering AI voice. If you're a KDP, it's coming. It may be a few months, but you're going to get it too. All right, so let's share screen here. I want to play some of this for you. All right, yeah, I was looking at. I got a big nugget, and this hat is a little too small. It is leather. It's hard leather. So I'm looking for a hat stretcher. So I can. Oh, look at this, dude. This is my. This is a flag, Prussian flag. I'm gonna get that for my table. Let me come back here on. I'm gonna look at myself on camera again, just make sure my hat's not too weird. Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah, it kind of gives me a headache because it's a little tight. All right, so we got some kind of crazy stuff there to brainwash your kids into whatever they want them to think. And sorry, I won't do that. See, this is all the ones I was looking at. I almost got this one. This one was a good deal, but I wanted the brass because I don't think that's a functional chin strap. I think that's just decorative. I could be wrong, but this is not the one I got. I think this is the one I got, but that's actually a functional head strap, and it's the one that I see the prints have. So I went with that. Where is my book? The Prussian prints. Let's look at a browsing history. Okay, here we go. Okay, there we go. And we're going to look at the. So, by the way, I warned you if you've been paying attention during the pre-sale or the pre-order. It was 99 cents in America and or the United States, and it was I think 79 pence in the UK because pound is worth more. And I felt bad, like I can't do that with the when I put things on special, but I can do it with the pre-order. So I made the British price closer to the true equality with the American one because there are months where I get more royalties out of the UK. I love my British readers and I want to treat them right and fairly. And I also know that Britain is struggling with cost of living crisis, and that breaks my heart. And so because I love the British and they are, I mean, the British, Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, possibly even South Africa. These are countries, the British Commonwealth. These are countries that Americans are willing to go fight for, and we did in World War I and II as well. So I look out for my brothers over there, my brothers and sisters, and they look out for me. They read my stuff. I'm going to heat up my coffee. Okay, or first of all, let's talk about this. So the Kindle is now $4.99, and I'll probably put it on special for like a week at a time every 90 days, probably after the first 6 months. And once the next book comes out, it'll go down to $3.99. So if you want to wait a year or longer, it'll be $3.99. Eventually, all the books that are under 100,000 words will drop down to $2.99, but it takes years for that. The first 2 books are $2.99. this is Kindle prices. The Blood for Blood, because it's a longer book. It's 100 and basically 120,000 words. That's going to stay at $3.99. Mexico My Love was $4.99. I dropped it down to $3.99. This is now in the $4.99. So the new book is always going to be the highest one, and then the previous book is going to, they're just going to cascade as new books come down. Mexico and Blood are both going to stay at $3.99, but this book, after a few others come out, will eventually find its way, because this is a 76,000 words. Anyway, yeah, you can get it there. The Kindle, the paperback is $11.99. That's great. That I was able to keep the price down on that. The other thing too is I've learned this, like the big commercial publishers, they don't want you writing 120,000 word books, even though it makes, people can brag about it and all that, oh yeah, my book is, I wouldn't write anything under 100,000. No, they want books. The target is like 80 to 85,000 words. That's what I was shooting for. I came in at 76. Maybe an extra chapter and it would have been there, but that was what the story, that the story, and it was a nice, good, tight story. But that's like the Goldilocks, the Goldilocks there. I would say between 70 and 90,000 words is a good place to be. Over that, I get charged 10 cents. 10 cents is taken out of my royalties every time I sell a digital copy of Mexico or Mexico or Blood for Blood, because there's such big books that it's a data fee where I don't pay that with these. So I think as an author, I really want to stick around 80,000 words and not. I mean, if I have a book that needs to be 120 or more, sure, that's fine. But I also think readers don't want to be saddled with a big, long book. And if you've read any of my books, there's not a lot of fat in them. There's plot is constantly happening. We are moving forward. We are they're page turners. Anyway, okay, that's what I want to say with that. So $11.99. Yeah, I was able to keep the production cost down by not having it be 120,000 words like the last two. Because one of the things is I want my books to be within the impulse buy within an impulse buy limit. So like, you're more likely to say, yeah, fuck it, I'll buy this for $12, a book for $12. I mean, even at the grocery store, there's not a whole lot that are $12 or less. I'd love to have it, $9.99 like Rampage on the River. But and then the hardcover is $16. So what I'm going to do, I want to heat up my coffee, is I'm going to play for you a sample of what the audio sounds like. So let's see here. That's the Kindle. Maybe the audio is it audio? Oh, and look at this too. If you buy it on Kindle, the audio is $5.99. It's not listed here for some reason. But you can add, so it's $5.99. I don't know why. Maybe I got to do I'll do a incognito. Let's see if that does. Yeah. Okay. Let's do Amazon. Do Cody C. Engdahl. There we go. And all right. There it is. All right, let me share this instead. Let's see if this worked. Huh. Yeah, it's not letting me. Okay. Let's close that. Let's see one of the other books. I want to play for you the audio for this, but I don't think it's up yet. let's see if it's up for the other books. We're going to go to my series here. Let's try Rampage on the River. Okay, yeah. So here's a sample of it. I'm gonna heat up my coffee. I'm gonna step away from the computer, but while I do so, I'm gonna play for you the audio, a sample of the audio, and you can tell me what you think of it. So here, let me plug this in so that we don't get an echo. All right. All right.
This title is narrated with virtual voice.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Computer-generated narration for audiobooks. Rampage on the River by Cody C. Engdahl. Preface. Thank you for reading my novel. I hope you enjoy it and come back for the next one. I plan to write many more. This work is the first of a series that will follow some of the exploits of the 2nd Michigan Voluntary Cavalry during the American Civil War. The main characters and their personal stories are purely fictional. However, I took great pains to be faithful to the real events of the American Civil War which I describe in this book, as well as many of the real historical people who appear in my story. You may recognize many of them. You may not. Please don't let that concern you. I wrote this book so that everyone can easily enjoy and understand it, regardless of how much you may know about the American Civil War. The American Civil War is still a controversial topic to this day. People argue over the causes, the reasons, and the conduct of both sides during the war. It is not my intention to make arguments either way. My goal was to write an entertaining and adventurous story that is also as historically accurate as possible. I am a big fan of historical fiction. In the end, I wanted to write a book that I, myself, would want to read. I've done that. I hope you like it too. When I decided to write a historical fiction novel, I thought it best to write about what I know and my own experiences. I also wanted to write on a topic where I would have plenty of access to factual resources for my research. I was born in Detroit. I grew up there and in its surrounding suburbs. I eventually settled in Nashville, Tennessee, where I now make my home. Talk to me for 5 minutes and it'll be very obvious that I am not from around here. Yet I'm completely taken by what I call the Southern gentlemanly arts.
Okay, so that gives you. Unfortunately, we never got far enough to get into the actual narrative with that. One of the things I have come to learn with the Kindles and the with the audiobooks is that I need to rearrange how I format the books, because an early criticism or annoyance I had was that I felt like the let's get back to I felt like as a reader, when I would pick up a when I pick up a new book on Kindle, that my Kindle automatically takes me to the narrative, and I want to read the earlier stuff. I want to go back, and so I realized that what the Kindles were doing were going past the title, the cover, the title page, all that stuff, and getting you to the first page after the content, table of contents. And I'm like, well, I want people to read that other stuff, like the forward information. So I started front loading my books, and I was putting everything after the table of contents, because I think what a lot of people are doing were putting things before the table of contents, then the table of contents, then the narrative, and probably for that very reason, so that you could get right into it. Well, I want people to. You don't have to, but I would like people to read my forward or preface. I get preface and forward. One is written by someone else. One is written by the author, and it's what I like to do in my forward or my preface is just to give you some information that might be helpful when you read, especially because this is historical stuff and you might not know the historical context of what you're about to read. And so I try to help people along and explain some things about, uh, 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 especially like my uses of languages and things like that. And you'll see. So, but I realized with listening to the audio samples that they never get, because the sample is only like, I don't know, like the first 10% of the book or whatever, or less than that, first 5%, first, you know, little bit of the book. It's what I'm saying is finite. It's probably not 10%, but it's just the first little bit of it. And I found that because I had front loaded um, the content before the narrative, that the sample never gets to the narrative. Like, for example, I have glossaries that are like 3 pages long that has, there's a lot of military terms I use. And a lot of people, I want my books to be accessible to everybody. So you don't need to be a military expert to read it. I want you to understand what a bastion is. So if you're like, what the hell is a bastion? Well, you can go to my glossary and see what that is. So I explain a lot of military terms and some other terms as well. But I put that before the narrative. So the audio is basically reading the glossary. So that's got to go. So now, starting with the Prussian Prince, I went ahead and rearranged it before I published it. I'm like, okay, well, this one we can start off right. So this one goes, the things that I want you to hear that are important to me, and you can skip them, of course, but it goes, there's the cover, the title page, the copyright page, the table of contents, and then the first thing after the table of contents, the first thing that will be that's shown in the sample and the audio sample is the preface. And I just talk about, like, a little bit of the history of Germany prior to the beginning of this narrative, so you kind of have an understanding of the world that the people are living in, and why Germany is not a united country like we know it today. And then after that, I put for the Prussian Prince, I do that. I do the dedication, because the dedication was very important to me. And then I do the epithets, and epithets are like little quotes that kind of set the mood of the book. And every one of my books has an epithet at the beginning, and for this one, there's a quote from Otto von Bismarck and a quote from um, the man who will be emperor eventually, but the Crown Prince Friedrich Wilhelm. He's the guy that you see if you've been following me on. He's the guy who's like literally, like, right now he's my avatar. So quotes from those two guys kind of sets the mood because they're contrast. And I'll just tell you right now, I'm not going to be able to do it perfectly, but Otto von Bismarck says, the big decisions of our time won't be decided by committees and voting and democracy. That was the mistake of 1848, but by blood and iron. In other words, he was saying that that Germany is going to forge its path not by, congresses and parliaments and all that, by people arguing, but by fighting. Very war bellicose thing to say, and absolutist thing to say, which, that was Otto von Bismarck. And then the quote from the Crown Prince Friedrich Wilhelm, and he was Crown Prince when he said it. He only becomes Emperor Friedrich III for like the last 90 days of his life. Said something like, I abhor war, gentlemen, and if I should become king, I'll never have war again, or something like that. So two very different things, and I think it sets the mood for the book, which starts in the revolutions of 1848. the revolution in basically the battle in the streets of Berlin between the king's army and the people. And we start there, and because that is going to explain one of the characters who is he's kind of a villain, it, kind of a frenemy of the main character, and he was that way. If you're familiar with the trilogy, it's Klaus. So it's Klaus is a little boy. So Klaus is in the American Civil War trilogy, and he's kind of an adversary, but sometimes an ally of the main character, Carl. Well, he is in Klaus 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 was in the first two books. He's in Rampage on the River, and he's in The Perils of Perryville. He he's mentioned in The Blood for Blood, but he doesn't make an appearance in that book. There was no point in creating an artificial. They have to do that with shows because they have actors that have to keep employed. But as a writer, I can have a character. If that character is not directly involved in the story, then I can just, he's off doing other things, which he was. He was not directly involved in Carl's story. And I won't give too much away because you'll see why Klaus is not directly involved in that story anymore. And also, Klaus enters the American Civil War as a lieutenant, where Carl starts off as a private. So as the war goes on, Klaus is up in rank, and he's just not dealing with company level people anymore. So what was I going to say? I forgot my train of thought here. Yeah. So anyway, you saw that. What else do I got to say? I guess we'll call it off here. I'm gonna start making dinner pretty soon here. Laura's come over for dinner. Tomorrow is my my birthday. So in fact, as soon as I get done with this, I'm going to open up my my page so people can wish me happy birthday. I used to leave it open, but I had some friends that would abuse it. That would put like embarrassing, borderline pornographic things on my page. And that was when I was like, okay, I got to close my page. I can't just let anybody. But other people too, clout chasers. Like people will, because I have over 3,000 followers, they'll tag me in something that has nothing to do with me, because they're trying to sell their car or promote something. And if I want to promote you, I'll do it, but don't do it. I mean, I never get mad or say anything to people, but I just untag myself. I'm like, this has got nothing to do with me. It's not me. So, I'm not going to, this person is obviously just using me to sell whatever they want to sell. But on my birthday, I open it up because I'm a narcissist, and thousands or hundreds of people, I'd say hundreds of people wish me a happy birthday. So, yeah, okay. Narcissism is a bad word now, because I guess they've switched. I'm an egomaniac is what I am. I guess narcissists are like psychopaths who have no compassion. I had tons of compassion for other people, almost too much. So I'm an egomaniac. So I like to get the birthday. So come wish me happy birthday tomorrow, and that's it. I might go live because the program right now is my birthday weekend. It's a little. We should be celebrating. It's my birthday tomorrow, and I launched the book today. I should talk about that too. And so there's plenty of reasons for me to be celebrating and Laura to be celebrating with me. Our cat died, and quite unexpectedly so. We think she had a stroke. She was fine last weekend. We had a great weekend. She's such a part of our life. She's such a part of our love for each other. And everything was great. We had a great weekend together. There's all sorts of rituals that we go through with the cat. One of which is when I stay there. First of all, the cat gets meat tube, which is like this little tube of like some kind of like soft food the cat likes, and I sit on the floor. Once we take our showers and we make drinks and we're listening to jazz and we're cooking, I sit down on the kitchen floor while Laura cooks, and I feed her one of these meat tubes, and the cat just loves it. And and the cat likes to sit in her bed next to the fireplace while we, and I always decides that when we sit down at the coffee table to eat, that's when she wants to be petted. So she comes over. I always got to eat with one hand. And when I'm there, I have to do all the cat duties because it's our cat, but it lives at Laura's house, which I'm happy to do. And then at night, the cat comes up and she usually, Laura gives her treats in bed and the cat will snuggle with us. And then the cat will go throughout the night. She'll wake us up a couple times. She'll want food because she's nocturnal or was. And, I always, if I'm at the house, I get up and feed the cat. And it's just such a regular thing. So last Sunday, admittedly, I went to bed drunk. I drank a half of bottle of whiskey, and at 12:30, and went to bed like 9:40 or something like that. We're old people, and Laura woke me up at 12:30. She said something's wrong with the cat, and there was the cat was walking funny. She was kind of dragging her. She didn't seem stable, and I could see like her shoulders, like she was having a hard time supporting herself. At first, it didn't seem so bad. Laura at first was like, "We should go right now." We talked it through. We both have had a few drinks. I said, "Look, she doesn't. There doesn't." And this is me. I said, "This doesn't look. I mean, I think she's got like the flu. Maybe she's feverish or whatever. Let's go first thing in the morning." The vet opened. Also, we'd have to go to the emergency room. It'd be really expensive, Just, let's call the vet 7 in the morning. So we did. But what's worse is that it got worse. It got worse, and it got to the point where like, well, should we go now? But the vet's going to be open in an hour, and so we right at 7 they answer the phone and they say, okay, you can bring her in at 8. So we said okay, and we brought her in. Her potassium was low, her heart rate was low, her body temperature was low, her blood pressure was high. They took some blood, blood tests. I think they gave her some painkillers or an opioid, or maybe that happened to the second place. They said, look, whatever it is, it's bad, and you wouldn't be wrong if you euthanized her right now, or you can take her to this this specialty place in the emergency that's off in Franklin, but this could turn into like $5,000. And I told Laura, I said, I support you whenever you want to do. If it's time to pull the plug, we can. If you want to, Laura's like, let's at least go to the other place and see what they have to say. And so we went there. They looked at her and looked at all the data they were getting, and they were saying all the different things that could be, and every single one of them was something that probably wasn't going to be fixable. The doctor said that she needed to do an ultrasound if they were going to learn more, because at that point we still don't really know what's wrong with the cat. And then once again, it was like, you won't be wrong if you decide to euthanize her now. And so they left us once again. This time Laura's like, well, everything she says sounds like it's uncurable. But they had given her a potassium shot, and they had put her on an IV because she was dehydrated. And they also were giving her oxygen. And I said, well, maybe, I'm looking for a fourth down conversion here. I said, maybe if we buy some time by doing the ultrasound. Of course, that's going to cost money, and it's Laura's money. And she said, okay, we'll do that. And so we told them, like, we'll do the ultrasound. And mostly for me, it was just to buy time to see if like the potassium and the hydration was going to work. And but Laura's like, but we need to eat, because we didn't eat breakfast. We were starving. It's like 11. And, we've been up since 12:30 at night. We'll go to Wendy's, and we walk in there, and we're about to order, and they call, and I could see Laura grimacing and crying as the woman's talking to her, and I didn't even need to hear what was being said. I basically, the cat was going. Oh, the cat had a seizure at the previous place. The cat was going and having seizures. It's looking pretty grim. It's probably we probably need to pull the plug. You need to get back here right away. So we at this point said, okay, we're gonna go ahead and have her euthanized. And we got back, and they, let us go into a waiting room right away. And we sat in there for like a minute or two, and the doctor came in, and she was crying. This is a veterinarian that works in an emergency, an emergency 24-hour emergency center for pets. She says, "I'm so sorry your cat died." And I mean, we bawled our eyes out. I mean, both of us. But I gotta say that I was relieved that we would not have been wrong had we had her euthanized earlier. But the fact that that decision was taken away from us, and that she died um, before we didn't decide to have her euthanized. She died. And there would have been nothing wrong with euthanizing her, but the fact that she died takes that off our chest. The thing that both of us are struggling with, and both of us are blaming ourselves. Like, I blame me, and Laura blames herself, and then we have to like talk each other back off the ledge. Is, should we have gone sooner? Should we have gotten in the car at 12:30 and taken the cat? And I even asked, would this have played out differently if we would have come here at 12:30 last night? And the doctor said no. Now, I don't know if she was saying that to be kind. What we believe happened is that the cat had a stroke while we were sleeping. And after the stroke, the cat was bewildered and confused, somehow made her way, and she deteriorated, so she could kind of walk and kind of move, but she came into the room, and that's when Laura woke up and saw something was wrong. And so we think it was a stroke, and then the cat was basically dying through the night and through the day. Had we got up at 12:30 in the night and taken her to the hospital, I don't think they would have been able to save her. So anyway, that's that story. It looked like I lost a viewer telling the story. But all that to say that this should be a happy time, because it's my birthday, and we're supposed to be celebrating. And I mean, I don't care. And I'm launching a book, but instead we're constantly finding reasons to torture ourselves and to cry while we're having drinks and making dinner together. So Laura's going to come over, and it's my turn to make dinner. And then tomorrow morning's my birthday, and she's got a few things to plan for me. We're going to have breakfast here, and then she's going to go back to her house, and I'm going to do a few things. I might go live again. And then we're going to do my birthday at her house. And like I said, it's really hard. I went to her house Friday, and the ritual is always that I show up before she does, and the cat comes downstairs and demands I sit down by the coffee table and pet her. And, not seeing the cat in the window, not, waking up in the middle of the night and the cat not asking for food. It's just, it's just weird. And, a lot of people say it's just a cat. I told my dad, I lost my stepmother a few months ago, or maybe about a month ago. No, it was just before Thanksgiving. And I almost felt bad and embarrassed to tell my father, who is reeling over losing his wife of 30 years. And, I wanted to tell him it because, it's something Laura and I are going through, but it's not like losing your wife for 30 years. But I said to my dad, I go, it's just a cat. This guy just lost his wife, the love of his life, to a horrific car accident, by the way. She didn't die of cancer. It was like she was perfectly fine. She's 13 years younger than my dad. My dad is the one dying of Elmore. Yeah. Lloyd, I was thinking about you. If you want to come on, let me know. I'll bring you on. I'll send you the link. If not, I won't. I was thinking about you because I know you went through it as well. And my friend Jack went through it. And Jack called me, and we talked, and he said a lot of great things. One of the great things that my friend Jack said to me, Lloyd, and I think you'd like this, is, Laura And I understand. I told Laura, take your time, but I think we should get another cat at some point. And she goes, I know, and we will at some point, but I don't want another cat. I want that cat, and I understand that, and I feel that way too. And part of it is my own weakness. Like I want to, um, I want a cat in her house to kind of fill that emptiness, that hollowness that I feel when I see she's not there anymore. But my friend Jack said to me, he goes, look, if it had been the opposite, if you and Laura had died that night, you would have wanted someone to take care of your cat, um, and to give her a home and to love her. So why wouldn't you think that your cat wouldn't want that for you? Why wouldn't you think that your cat who rescued you, why wouldn't you think that your cat would also want to make sure, I'm sorry, I'm going to cry, that you were taken care of in her absence? So I think that's really, I thought that was really profound, and I really like that. So anyway, that's the story with that. The one last thing I want to talk about before I go, and I know we've been going long, and I'm getting hot in this uniform. I got a studio, or I got a it's a portable light, but it's a professional light kit here. That's why I look so good. I'll take that off altogether. I'll take that off too. Give my head a rest. The okay, I botched the launch. All right, so first of all, the advice I get from everybody is don't try to set your launch for a special day. No one cares but you, including me. No one cares about my launch date but me. The only reason why I thought my birthday would be a good day for the launch is because I finished writing, and I'm an independent. So yes, I want to get more books out quickly, but no one is putting deadlines on me other than me. I got done writing the book the week of Thanksgiving, and usually it takes me about. I have found that the process from first draft to publication is 2 months, and part of that is I do a lot of the editing as I'm writing. Each writing session starts with me reading what I wrote the last session and making corrections, and then after I finish each chapter, I go through and I do a lot of editing, and I need to do that so to keep myself on track of what I'm writing and what I'm doing. I know there are some people, everybody's different, and you do what works for you. Some people just write the whole thing first and then go back and do open heart surgery. I like to edit as go. So because of that, there's not a whole lot of like structural, or what they call developmental editing. It's more of just proofreading with a few little things like that. So that process takes about 2 months. So when I finished at the end of November, that put me at like the end of January, basically, to launch. And I thought, okay, well, my birthday's February 4th. And not because I have any kind of emotional attachments to like the place the Earth was at the time, or in relation to the sun at the time I was born. I don't care. I'm a existentialist. Nothing has any real meaning to me. But I thought, I get a lot of attention, as does everybody. On their birthday, I open up my page, I let people write on it, and I usually, last time I had over 300 people wish me happy birthday on my page. That's a lot. So I got a little over 3,000 followers and 300 people, over 300. So about 10% of my audience, and half of those are people that have like 10 accounts, or people that have passed away. So I thought, okay, well, it would make marketing sense to put the launch on my birthday, because that's the day everybody's paying attention to me. So if everybody's paying attention to me and they're seeing that I'm launching a book, maybe that'll get some people interested in buying the book. So the way it works with KDP, these are separate. You got to think of each format of your book as a separate thing. So the Kindle version is its own product. The paperback, its own product. The hardcover, own product. The audiobook. So right now, each book has 4 separate products. And so with the only one that they allow pre-orders is the Kindle version. Okay. And I don't know why they do this. I think it's because there's no physical thing that's being sold and it has to be produced. And so it's easy to make that happen. So you can do a pre-order and you set a date and then it goes out. And if you have followers, it'll let them know. But what's great about pre-orders is then you can start advertising the book. And there is a school of thought that unless you know you're going to get actual pre-orders, you shouldn't do it, because if you get none, then your book starts dropping into the ratings and it goes to Palookaville. And the further up in the ratings your book goes, the less likely Amazon's going to show it to people. So so David Chesham says you shouldn't do pre-orders unless you're famous, have a loyal readership, or a great marketing plan. And I always say, well, I have a little bit of each of those things. That's enough to carry me through. And I was very aggressive with my marketing. And I'm going to get back on topic because we're going to talk about me bungling the launch date. But I started running Amazon ads because Brian Cohen had his 90 or 5-day. He does it every quarter. Every 3 months he does a 5-day author ad challenge where they teaches people how to do Amazon ads. Highly recommend it if you're an author. I do it every time. It's free. They try to get you to join their author ad school, which is paid. But they're happy if you just come and do the free thing every 3 months. And I understand the people who need to do it, the paid version. And if you need more help, do it. And you can afford it, do it. I absolutely. And I think Brian Cohen, he's legit. He's a good guy. I can vouch for him. It's no ripoff. So anyway, I built those ads. And then I also, when I said, fuck it, I'm just going to go ahead and publish. And I'll tell you how I got to that in a minute. I started running Facebook ads, which are a lot more expensive, and I'm running them in the US and the UK. And I came up with a Groundhog Day alternate, which I thought was just too funny not to waste my money on making people in England and in the United States look at. So the other versions, you cannot do a pre-order, but you can set a publication date. So you can't do pre-orders with paperbacks, but what you can do is set it so that the paperbacks will be released on this date. Now, why would you do that? One of the reasons why is once it's approved, you can order your books early because I do some direct sales. I have some orders that people want that want to buy signed copies from me that once I get them, I sign them and I send them in the mail. But also, if you want everything to come out on the same date. So I did the pre-orders for the Kindles for February 4th, my birthday. And I thought, and I'll have the print come out that same day. The audiobook, which works with that, is that it's very fast to do. So the audiobook, this morning while Laura was sleeping, I set up the audiobook, bam, done. And I think it's already online. So here's what happened. With the pre-order, Amazon takes that really seriously. And once you set it, what's really weird, you can't stop it and then just publish the book if you early. You have to just go in and bring the date as close to today as possible, but it won't let you just go ahead and publish, which is what I wanted to do. Also, I think you're allowed maybe one delay, like if you want to move it back, but Amazon gets really mad if you do that. And I think they'll allow you to do it once. But after that, if you fuck up a pre-order, Amazon, they'll still let you publish your books, but they won't let you do pre-orders for an entire year. So my advice to anybody who does pre-orders is make sure you can make that date. And for me, I don't do a pre-order until I'm done with my editing and I hand it off to Laura to do proofreading and then my mom, because then I know that I'll make my date. I'll also say a thing that I learned as well is I found out after the fact that Amazon, you need to do at least 60 days of pre-order for Amazon to send an email to your followers. So I have Facebook or Amazon followers, and 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 if you're an author, just go to your Author Central and you can see how many you have. And they don't send and when you have followers, what happens is Amazon will send your followers, if they opt for this, an email when you have something up for a pre-order and when you have something and when something's released. I didn't realize this until after the fact, that Amazon won't alert people that you have a pre-order unless you have at least 2 months out. My pre-orders are usually just a month away. When I'm about a month away from publishing, I'll do the pre-order. So the next time I will do it 2 months out, but I'll make sure that I'm going to hit that mark, because I still don't want to do it until I'm done. And if I don't care about the date, I can always do the have it released sooner than the original pre-order said. The only reason why I was doing it is, once again, it was my birthday, but other than my birthday, it didn't matter when it came out. So put it out 2 months from the time I finished my editing, and then reel it back into the closest date possible once you realize everything's done and it's ready to go. I think that's what I'm going to do next time, so I can get that email going out to my followers. Now, hopefully there will be an email now that everything's released that my followers will get. So if you follow me on Amazon and you get an email that my book has been released, please let me know, because I want to see if it happens. So here's what happened. Here's how all that got fucked up. The pre-order, when you do a pre-order, like 4 days before it comes out, is the last day you're allowed to make any changes. And then KDP, Amazon, locks that book, and you can't do anything. If there's typos, whatever, you can't change anything. It's got to be locked in 4 days before. So the deadline was, it's midnight GMT time on the 31st. It was the 31st to hit the February 4th date. But in Central Time, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, that would have been I think 5:59. So I had to get it done by 5 o'clock on the 31st. Now, the print books were different. The print books, there's no pre-order, and so the stress is not as big. But if you wanted to have on a certain date, you got to get that in, I think, almost a week before. So I had to get the print stuff done and finalized by 6 o'clock Monday the 29th. Okay. And so everything was set to go. Laura I done all my editing. Laura read it, sent me all her corrections. I did all those corrections, sent it to my mom. My mom went through it, sent me her corrections, and then I read through it one last time. Everything was bundled up on Sunday, and the plan was on Monday, I was going to use that day to format the print copies and basically taking my master manuscript and dumping it into a 5x8 template that Amazon gives me to do. And it's tedious because it should only take like an hour to dump it and then to make sure chapters start on new pages. But for some wacky reasons, and it might be because I'm on a Mac, everything that is like things that are supposed to be italicized are not, and things that are not supposed to be italicized are. And there's no rule or reason why all of a sudden 3 pages will be italicized, but yet something that's supposed to be isn't. So you have to go through line by line. It takes hours and hours of concentration to do. And that was fine because my plan was I was going to get up Monday morning. I stayed the night at Laura's house because the Lions were playing on national TV and I don't have a TV. And so I was going to watch it there. And then I was going to, spend the morning formatting the book and getting it online on time. Well, the cat died. The cat had a stroke and we were up all night. And so I spent all that morning while we're in waiting rooms formatting the print version of the book on the day it's due. And finally, when the cat passed away, we came home. Laura's like, I can't be alone right now. I said, I totally understand. We hadn't slept all night, so we ate because we hadn't eaten all day either, and then we went up and crawled into bed. She went to sleep, and I spent about 3 hours finishing the formatting and falling asleep myself. But I got it all done, and by 3:10 that day, it was due by 5:59 that evening. Everything was done and finalized. Everything was sent. I made it. I made my deadline, even though I was dealing with a tragic crisis of the death of my cat. I was exhausted. I was keeping myself awake as I was doing the work. Put the computer down, took a power nap, slept for about a half hour, woke up. I went home and all that. I woke up the next day, and the print copies got rejected, not because of the manuscript, but because of the cover. And the problem with the cover is that, and this is what's so frustrating to me. I had a professional do it. I had my friend Jack Scott, who's the creative services director at 11 Alive in Atlanta. Do it. He's an absolute pro. You can see it. You can see it in the quality of the cover right there. But my name was crossing the guidelines. So all the graphics, like any kind of words or like, the eagle, all that, there's like a white line that represents like the edge of the book. And then there's a red line that I can't see because I'm colorblind and it's dark, that all the script has to be in there. So it got rejected. So the only thing I could do to fix it was to just shrink the cover a little bit, but that created a black border, because I made the background behind the cover black. But I wanted to get it, across the finish line. But the problem was at that point is when they said you got to have it in by this date, I thought it was so there was plenty of time to like fix things and make corrections. No, at that point, because they rejected it, the earliest I could set a date for was February the 5th. Well, February the 5th is meaningless to me. There's no point in that. So I was like, okay, well, there's no point in waiting for the 4th. So we might as well just go ahead and publish it. So Jack fixed it for me. He was able to jump on it real quick. And I fixed the cover. And at this point, instead of, I'm not doing the, setting the date, I'm just as soon as it's done. And that's what's so ridiculous is that if I wanted to set the date, I had to do it like a week in advance. But if I just want to publish it now, it's published as soon as it's approved. So we fixed the title, we fixed the cover, sent it in. The Kindle versions usually take about 3 to 4 hours to be approved. The print versions take about 12 hours to be approved. So I just said, go ahead and publish it. So then, and I can't remember when that came online, probably on Thursday, probably like February the 1st, maybe is when it came on. So then I said, well, there's no point in waiting for the pre-order thing to February 4th. We might as well go ahead and just publish it now. Well, for some reason, the way that works, I can't just hit a button and say publish now. You can't do that. All you can do is change the date, and the date still has to be like 3 days out or something like that. So the soonest I could release it was today, which is really interesting because it actually released last night, and there's a reason for that. So I was like, fuck it. I blew the launch. I mean, I didn't blow the launch. I mean, I got everything done on time. And actually the result is of me fucking this up was that everything got released earlier. So, and like I said, I'm not going to try to hit a date again unless there's a very good reason. And the good reason was it was my birthday. I thought, well, this might be good for marketing. People are paying attention to me on my birthday, so we'll have it come out on my birthday. But outside of that, if there's no real reason, if it's some kind of personal reason, like I want it to come out on this day because it's the day my cat died, no one fucking cares. You got the book done, get it out there, start writing the next one. So that's the story with that. Everything is out. What have I learned with this? Well, I'm going to do 60-day pre-orders instead of 30-day pre-orders, but I'm going to release as soon as it's done, even though it's going to be like 3 days out. I like doing pre-orders because I feel like it gives me a running jump. And like, I'll tell you this: I don't like publicly talking about specific numbers and money, but I'll tell you this. And I never got to the Dave Chisholm. Oh, I did. Dave Chisholm says don't do it unless you know you're going to sell them. And I learned that after I launched my pre-order for Blood for Blood. And I will tell you that my pre-orders were pathetic for Blood for Blood. I didn't get a whole lot. I got some, but not a whole lot. Then a year later, or a little bit more, about a year and a half later, or maybe less than that, I can't remember, about 14 months is kind of now my pace, although I'm hoping to tighten that up a little bit. With Mexico, My Love, we did pre-orders for that. And I'm always trying to just beat the last book. Mexico, My Love, the pre-orders were far better. And that kind of set the standard for the pre-orders for the Prussian Prince. And I also keep track of, I compare all my novels. How well do they do for the first week, the second week, the third week, all the way to the fifth week. And then I go into months. How I compare all their first month, second month, third month, all the way up to 5 months. And the only reason why it's 5, not 6, is because I didn't have enough. I wanted to have the columns on the spreadsheet on one page. So it made, so we did 5 weeks and 5 months is how we compare the performance of each one. And it's very interesting to look at how I like looking at patterns. And what's interesting is Perils of Perryville, which is the second novel I put out, didn't perform as well as Rampage on the River. But the reason being is because Perils of Perryville came out February of 2020, also close to my birthday. And it was during COVID. And I wasn't able to do events. People were like not buying, people are losing their jobs, so they're not spending money on books, all that kind of stuff. Then Blood for Blood did much better. Blood for Blood was really a juggernaut, really started building my readership. And when that came out, Perils and Rampage really started selling, and the whole trilogy started selling. And then what was interesting is that the Mexico, My Love came out the day after Thanksgiving. And once again, I'm learning as I go. And the misconception I had is like, oh, I'll get this out for the Christmas season because people are buying Christmas presents and maybe people buy it. What I learned is that no one buys other people's books for Christmas presents. And not only that, I mean, some people do. I literally had some people buy books from me directly to give as Christmas presents. And there might have been some of the sales, but the sales are pretty bad in December because not a lot of people buy books as Christmas gifts, and not a lot of people are buying books for themselves, and not a lot of people have time to read in December. So when Mexico, My Love came out, the first week was the best first week I ever had. And it's because I had more loyal readers. I had people who had read the trilogy and had found me on, got to know me on social media in the time in between. So, and plus friends and family. So that first week was the best week I ever had. And then the bottom fell out. And the rest of the month was absolutely pathetic, to the point where I was really worried. I was like, wow, maybe it's because I'm finally out of the American Civil War and people are not interested in this war. After Christmas, I thought, okay, I do know this thing about the gift stuff. So maybe now when people have gift cards to use, we start going after it. So the day after Christmas, I started running Amazon or Facebook ads. Blammo. All of a sudden, like my everything, like everything, like way higher than I've ever. My sales quadrupled from the time I put out Blood for Blood, and stayed up there all the way through July. I mean, it was unbelievable. Then the bottom fell out again in August, the doldrums, but it took longer. I got a question from Lloyd. Lloyd says, when do you think is the best time to publish a book? I looked that up, and I'm going to give you the answer I got, and I agree with the answer. The best time to publish a book is as soon as it's done. I think if you're Stephen King or J.K. Rowling, you might want to strategically. And I know this is, this is one of the reasons why I'm so grateful that I'm an independent and not with a publisher. So many of my friends who are publishers, they finish a book and a publisher will sit on it for a year. For a fucking year. Are you kidding me? No, if you got a book and it's done, don't sit on it. Get it out, because the one thing you'll learn, in fact, I was talking to Philip Lee, who's a guy who I coach, and he's putting out his third book, and he said, Cody, you're absolutely right. He goes, each time I put out a new book, the other book starts selling. So you'll find that each book exponentially sells the previous ones in the series, and that certainly has been the case with me. So in this one, my excuse me, when I first did the pre-orders, Lloyd bought one. Thank you very much, Lloyd. My mom, I bought one, Laura bought one, just to help the numbers, to help the ranking. And then we got more and more, but it was coming in. It wasn't a whole lot. I was almost at the point of, I don't think I'm going to beat Mexico My Love in pre-orders. And then, once I realized I screwed up the launch, I was like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. I'm going to go ahead and start running Facebook ads. I want to get as much as I can. So I started writing Facebook ads. And not only that, but the ads I created a week prior on for Amazon, those started serving, those started getting impressions and getting clicks. And started running the Facebook ads, and those went bonkers. All of a sudden, and I'm waiting for it to launch, all of a sudden, I'm getting all these, like the pre-orders all day long are just stacking up and stacking up and stacking up. And I will say this, in the end, when the book finally came out, I more than tripled my pre-orders from the previous book. Now, I will tell you a couple things I do. First of all, I poured a lot of money into Facebook ads. The other thing I did is during pre-order, I dropped the price down to $1 or 99 cents in the US, 79 cents in the UK, because my feeling is the reason why I do pre-orders is I want high ranking. And the Prussian Prince was raking like in the 50,000s. And I'm telling you, most books that are doing decent are like in the 200,000s. Prussian Prince got down to 50,000s. It was ranking the top 100. At one point, it was ranked 7th in like top new releases in historical military fiction. So it was really, really cranking there. And so now that it releases, it's under 100,000 ranking. This is all books, from Bibles to cookbooks to you name it, everything, which is millions. There are millions of books. So out of millions of books, if your book is ranking under 100,000, you're doing pretty damn good. This book has been under 100,000 for a while now, for a few days, and all because of those factors. So I think the next time, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to publish when I'm done. I'm going to set the pre-orders. I'm not going to worry about timing the print books. Just when they're done, they're done. When everything's done, I'll publish the print books, and then I'll move up the pre-order date earlier. So, over promise, or no, under promise, over deliver. So I'll always be delivering the book earlier than people thought it was going to come out, which is, I guess, a pleasant surprise, and better than the other way around, disappointing people. The other thing I want to say is, I thought this was very interesting. I'm going to check to make sure Laura isn't on her way or whatever. I mean, if she is, it's fine. Oh, yep, Laura is on her way. She's stopping to get beer and gas. um, what else do I want to say? So I was writing this book, and uh, I was really worried about it because I thought, most of my audience came from following me because I wrote a Civil War trilogy. And I'm like, are they going to follow me here? And one of the things I noticed was that, in my genre, which is like military historical fiction or historical action adventure, that kind of stuff, is all the big dogs that are with big publishing companies. There's only three things that they typically are doing. It's Romans, Vikings, or Nazis. And if you're not writing any of those three, those publishers aren't going to talk to you. If any of my big shot author friends went to their publisher and said, I think I'm going to write a book about the Austro-Prussian War, they would laugh them out of the room. Because, these big companies can't take risks. That's why you see so many remakes and superhero movies, because they're kind of a known commodity. But already those guys are suffering. All those films are flopping because everybody's tired of it. And so I was worried. I told Laura, three things are going to happen. Either Fresh Prince is going to come out and it's going to do incrementally better than the other ones because my readership is getting bigger, but it's not going to really do great, and it's not going to flop either. Or it's going to flop because no one's interested in the Austro-Prussian War. Or maybe I'm writing something that people have been longing for and have not been seeing. And I'll tell you right now, I was looking at novels about the Austro-Prussian War. The only one I could find was written by Alexander Dumas, who wrote The Three Musketeers and wrote The Count of Monte Cristo. And he wrote it like in 1867, like the year after it happened and right before he died. It might actually be the last book he ever wrote. And I read it. It's pretty good. It's not as good as The Musketeers, and mine's better. But that's how much of a demand there is. I've had so many comments on, not from friends and family, but on the ad. These are people who don't follow me, don't know me. They've seen the ad that I paid for them to see. Write things like, oh my God, this looks awesome. I cannot wait to read this. I've been getting a lot of that, and I'm beginning, and my pre-orders are triple what they were for the last one. Right now, with day one, my sales for day one of this launch have beaten the first full month of Mexico, My Love. That's how well this book is doing so far. I have beat all my sales for an entire month of the first month of Mexico, My Love, with just one day. And part of that is because I have worked really hard of building up a readership and building up a brand. But I think also people start seeing this helmet and they're like, whoa, you mean there's German history that's not Nazis? Holy cow. You mean Germany existed before the 20th century? I know, because all they get from the Germans is like the Crusades and then the Nazis, man. And if you're lucky, you might get a little German Empire with World War I. So hopefully, it's going to be really funny because I won't mention names, but there are big shot, famous authors who are chasing the trends, who wrote like Roman books because everybody is writing Romans. This word Jaffa means just another fucking Roman author. And then all of a sudden, Bernard Cornwell starts writing Vikings, and now everybody's writing Vikings. So I've seen these authors chasing what's popular, and writing things like King Arthur or Robin Hood because they're known commodities. And a lot of that is because they're commercially published, so they have to write things that are commercially viable. You know that a book about King Arthur is going to sell. You know a book about Vikings is going to sell. Romans is going to sell. But no one is writing, and this is where a little guy like me, and this is the great thing about being an independent, you can make a living being an independent by serving a very focused audience, because you don't have the overhead. I'm not paying for a skyscraper in London or New York. I'm not paying for a marketing crew. I'm doing all this myself, and I can make more money selling to less people by giving them something that they're not getting anywhere else. And I'm telling you right now, Penguin Random House doesn't have a book that has Prussians with spiked helmets. Neither does Simon and Schuster. I am coring the fucking market, man. Prussian glory. So if this does take off really well, I got one more Prussian book coming out, which is the next one, and then we're moving on to something else, another popular genre, which is pirates. And it's so the next book is going to continue the story that starts in the Prussian Prince, but it's going to carry it into the next war, which is the Franco-Prussian War. And then after that, I'm doing a book called Black James. Of course, all this can change if unforeseen circumstances happen. But Black James is based off a character who is first mentioned in the trilogy, and then you get to meet him in Mexico, My Love. He's basically a runaway slave who becomes a pirate. And I love the idea behind him. And I've always had this idea that once I get done with the Franco-Prussian thing, we're going to do a whole novel going from his ancestor being captured in Africa and sold into slavery through an ancestor being part of the British Royal Marines, burning down the White House in the War of 1812. And then those black soldiers that served Great Britain during the War of 1812 were, because Britain gave them a deal. If you escape from slavery and come to our ranks, we will grant you, we will guarantee your freedom. And so after the War of 1812, they had all these black Marines that they didn't know what to do with them. They couldn't leave them in America because they would be, captured and turned back into slaves or worse. So a lot of them were relocated to different places in the empire, including Jamaica, which was controlled by the British. So his story is that his father ends up running a shipping dock in Jamaica, and James grows up there in love with pirates, reading pirate romances as a little boy, ends up getting betrayed and sold into slavery through treachery, becomes a slave. He's a slave on the Bethune plantation, which if you read the trilogy, you'll know what I'm talking about. Escapes all that and becomes this glorious and terrifying pirate that you get to meet in Mexico, My Love. That's going to be fun because people write pirate books, but usually pirate books are written in the golden age of piracy, which is like the 1600s up to like 1730. This is where Captain Morgan, Captain Blackbeard, all these famous pirates that we learned about. This is very late. And what I like about Black James is that he is a romantic. He becomes a pirate because as a little boy, he reads romances. So he's a real pirate, but he's also kind of cosplaying he's like a pirate fan living out his fantasy but becoming a terrifying pirate in the meantime. So that'll be the next book. And then we're going to come back and I have it'll be another main sequence book with Carl that and some of the other characters that you've met in this, and we're going to do a North African and Egyptian adventure. There's a Western, there might be an Asian Japan adventure. Right now there's about 11 books in the Carliad. The last book is a World War One. And then there's some ideas about after World War One that I might do, leading up into World War II. We'll see how far I go. It depends on. I have some other series. There are some other things I want to do within the long 19th century. There's a Revolutionary War book I want to do. There's a Haitian Revolution book I want to do, and there's also a French Napoleonic War possible series I want to do, and then there's some other series. So anyway, Laura's going to be here any minute, so I'm going to sign off. Hey, go over there, at least check it out. You can listen to it'll be up soon, the audio version. You can listen to a sample of that. You can read. Let's see if the preview's up yet. Shit. I hate it does this all the time. You go to click on something, and just before you click it, a little menu pops up, and you end up clicking on something else that was not your intention. They always do that. Okay, the preview is not up, but the preview will be up. $4.99 for the Kindle, $12 for the paperback, $16 for the hardcover, $5.99 for the audiobook. But if you buy the Kindle, you can get the audiobook for just $1.99. Check it out. You can read it without reading my other stuff. Or if you're like, you know what, Cody, I like everything you say. You seem like an interesting guy. I'm going to go ahead and just dive in. If you want to, how do I look at the whole thing? If you want to just dive in and start at the very beginning, and you don't have to, you can enjoy. You can if the Prussian Prince is the first book of mine that you've ever read, you'll understand what's going on and you'll enjoy it. This is the very first book of the series. It's Rampage on the River. It's only $2.99. The audio book I think is $3.99. Hardcover $18, $10 for the print. I'll tell you this. I'm proud of all my books. I will say this about Rampage on the River. People who read Rampage on the River come back and buy Perils of Perryville. People who read Perils of Perryville come back and buy Blood for Blood. And those, what I'm trying to say is that people usually, once they get started, they read my whole series. I remember I used to play at a farmer's market, and they, after the first time, they couldn't afford to pay us, but they allowed me to sell books and have a tip jar. And a guy came one week and he bought Rampage on the River. And the next time, I think we came like once a month. The next month when we showed up, as soon as he saw me, he walked right over, handed me the money for Perils of Perryville, and he bought that. And then when he stopped going, so I hope he continued to read the series through Amazon. So anyway, I'm going to go. I love you guys, and thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for supporting me. If you bought any of my books, thank you very much. If I will tell you this, I say this all the time. Authors live and die by their reviews and their ratings. So if you have authors out there, whether it's me or someone else, and you like their work and you want to support them, give them a review and give them as many stars as you're willing to give. 5 would be great, because there's a lot of assholes that give you 1 star for something stupid. And give them a review on Amazon. If you buy it on Amazon, you can do I think you can still review it even if you hadn't bought it directly from Amazon, but it's only verified purchase if you bought it there. But you can do it on Goodreads. Help your authors out. Write reviews and give them stars, whether it's me or it's Lloyd or it's anybody else there. And keep reading, keep writing, and let me know what you think of the book. I might go on tomorrow. I think I will, because Laura will leave, and there's going to be a little bit of a window between Laura leaving in the morning and me going back to her house that evening for my my birthday celebration. So thank you guys. Love you very much. And oh yeah, okay, we did that. All right.